Welcome to Pop Culture Roulette for all your pop culture needs. We're America's podcast.
All right.
Welcome, everyone. As always, I'm Nicholas. I'm joined by Justin. Crushed he couldn't watch the Pro Bowl.
Pro Bowl unenthusiast.
Pro Bowl on it. And, well, I would say we're joined by Jeremy, but he was so highly disappointed that the NFC lost the Pro Bowl, he just didn't have the energy to show up today.
No,
So
it's like Man Down Part 1, but with me.
Yeah, I'll just say we've done it where it's been me and Jeremy. I'm pretty sure that you guys have done it with just you and him. I don't think we've ever done one just me and you.
Oh,
this is This is new territory. This
will be the first time this train wreck happens.
All right. Well,
let's see how it goes.
Yeah. So, well, you just said you just watched the new Spider-Man movie.
I did.
It's been out.
Saw that today.
It's been out for a little while now, so I feel like we can kind of break it down a little bit without spoiling anything for anybody, because I have a feeling that you and Jeremy were the last two people on the planet to see it anyway.
That's probably accurate, yes.
What'd you think?
I enjoyed it. It's they definitely try to pull at your heartstrings with this one.
Yeah.
More so than any of the other ones, I thought.
Yeah. There was the one scene with Aunt May that almost got me.
Yeah.
Definitely looked over at the wife and could tell it did get her.
There's the little trickle.
Little trickle. I was so happy when Tobey Maguire stepped out of the portal.
Yeah. Has he done anything recently?
He's started doing a lot of the weird movies, like not necessarily underground, but like just like he started his own production company and does like, I want to say, like if it was an indie band, it would be like indie horror films. Like it would be like an indie rock band. Like,
all right.
So he's never stopped working. He just does all. I mean, he did. No, that was Elijah Wood. I was going to say he did Alfred, but Elijah Wood did Alfred. Sometimes I get Tobey Maguire and Elijah Wood confused, but
understandably so.
But
yeah, he came through.
The crowd that I was with when Andrew Garfield came through, all like gasped, like they didn't know it was going to happen, and were much more excited about that.
So you must have been with a younger crowd.
Must have been. I was kind of, because like, all right, the two Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies were not bad.
No, the first one was really good. The second one, I think Andrew Garfield was good, but the movie itself was lackluster.
Right. And I think that was part of the problem. And then when Sony got hacked and it kind of came to light that they really just didn't know what they were doing, and Marvel was like, we want Spider-Man back, like more than anything. Sony was like, okay, let's make a deal. And it kind of ended the Sony just didn't have enough energy to keep fighting Disney off. So they were like, okay.
You can only turn down so many bags of money.
Well, and honestly, at some point, like I do believe, had Sony not worked out a deal with Disney would have bought them just like they bought Fox. Like Disney was like, we want X-Men, we want Daredevil, we want all these characters, and Fox was like, no, we're never give them to you. And then Disney just said, okay, well, we'll take the whole company.
Yeah, we'll just buy you out.
We'll buy you. And I feel like Sony was either
just for those titles.
I feel like there's a good chance that like the same thing was about to happen to Sony if they hadn't made a deal. They're like, okay, all right, we'll just buy you then, and then you'll be out of a job.
We're starting to go under. Just sell Marvel their stuff back.
But there's
That
been
was their retirement plan.
there's been this movement online since the movie came out for them to make Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 3 with Andrew Garfield. And Andrew Garfield's response was, I believe I'm quoting, "Where the fuck were you after the second one was made?"
Nice.
Because basically it's like you guys weren't here in the first place. Like that's why the third one didn't get made. Because even if I mean if the fan base had been there and like they had made all kinds of money, even if had the deal gone through, I think they would have just made those movies retroactive, and Andrew Garfield would have been the one in Civil War.
Yeah, that would have been a whole different.
They would have
feel
right. They would have figured out a way to like make the two Spider-Man movies part of the MCU. I mean that's.
Yeah, I did like some of the small cameos too that were in this one.
Yeah.
Well, especially the one small one with Daredevil.
Yep.
I was like, oh, look who it is.
Well, I think everybody's been making a big deal out of like, oh, the Netflix shows aren't canon. Yeah, they are. I mean, clearly. I mean, now with Charlie Cox playing Daredevil in the Spider-Man movie, and then Vincent D'Onofrio playing the exact same version of Kingpin in Hawkeye. Like that's them saying, hey,
it's all together.
Yeah, it's all together. Like we're not going to reinvent the wheel here. They might change some of the characters here or there, just like where they're like, oh, Terrence Howard, you're being a dick. What? Oh, geez, Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle, you're in. Like, oh,
yeah, I was hoping they would have made a reference to Punisher too after I seen Daredevil.
Yeah, they haven't done. They haven't referenced Punisher, Jessica Jones, or Iron Fist yet.
Yeah,
but because Daredevil had that Defender series where like they all got together.
Yeah.
They're there. Now I don't know what they're going to do with them, if they're just going to ignore them or not, but I mean they're gonna
Doesn't Punisher also make an appearance in Daredevil before he got his own show?
Yes. In the second, that was how they kind of introduced the Punisher character
in
Daredevil. So
he's there too somewhere.
Right. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that John Bernthal will be the MCU Punisher.
Oh, but he should.
He should be. I mean, he was really good at it. As boring as the first season of Punisher was, and I haven't watched the second season yet, I thought his Punisher on Daredevil, like his introduction to the character, was really good. Well, and I thought John Bernthal himself did a really good job.
Yeah, it was a really good adaptation of it. And then I liked too the first credit where they're introducing Venom into the universe.
Well, okay. So is Tom because clearly they sent him back to whatever, although it's not like they can't open the portal back up and bring him back. But I mean, because Tom Hardy was like apparently the whole time the Spider-Man are fighting part of the not Fantastic Six, the Evil Six, the
Sinister Six.
The Sinister Six. He was just getting drunk at a bar.
Hey, dude knows what he's doing.
But when he got sucked back into his universe, a little part of the Venom symbiote stayed behind.
Yeah, it was on the bar.
So, I mean, I guess that kind of says that, they're potentially going to play with the Venom in the future. Now, that does mean that, like, they can just be like, well, this Tom Hardy happens to be the exact same Tom Hardy. And that Venom symbiote was like, well, we like that guy, so we're just going to hunt him out. Like, this Eddie Brock is the same Eddie Brock.
Yeah, or it could be someone different too.
Or it could, I was kind of curious as to why. I mean, I'm not surprised, but I kept kind of waiting for James Franco to show up. But I know with some of his off the field activities, he's kind of maybe not
Yeah, he's not.
Disney.
I don't think he's showing up.
And then I wonder if Topher Grace was like, listen, you guys hated me that much, I'm not coming back. Or if they were like, oh no, everybody hated this, we're not, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he got the invite in the mail. He's probably calling them. Hey, you want me? And they're just like, leave it unread. Leave it unread.
I have enjoyed reading
New number. Who dis?
I have enjoyed reading like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield finally going, okay, well, we actually get to tell you now that we were in the movie. And Andrew Garfield going, yeah, Emma Stone kept calling me and I kept having to lie to her. But no, I mean, it clearly opens up a whole new world, and it opens up and I think the next Doctor Strange movie is going to open it up even further. I'm still wondering, because you said you watched the Eternals, right?
No, that one I haven't watched.
Okay, so Jeremy's the one that watched the Eternals. I'm still wondering if they're not going to use the Eternals as a way to bring in the X-Men. Because the part of me also thinks that they, because after the snap and now everybody's back and not back, and now we have Doctor Strange opening up portals to the multiverse. I mean, there's a way to bring in the X-Men where you can either actually find a way to bring Hugh Jackman in, although he said he was done.
Yeah, didn't he also say he would do one more if it was part of the MCU?
Yeah, I mean, if he got to do it with, the guys that were currently in the MCU, so who knows?
Yeah, they should do that also and bring in Deadpool.
That would
just get him and Hugh Jackman together. That's all I want to see.
Yeah, I do want to see that. I'm not one of these people that will sit here and tell you that like Deadpool can't be done right if it's not rated R. I don't believe that Alien vs. Predator had to be rated R. I believe it suffered because it wasn't rated R, but I also believe it suffered because it had really bad writing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that with good writing, you can make just about any movie that's rated R or PG-13 and make it good.
I'd agree.
You
little
just have
tweaks here and there.
Yeah, you just have to be smarter about it. So you can't drop as many F-bombs as you want to, but you can be more creative.
Yeah.
So it requires a better writer, but I mean there are people who are going to scream and yell, and maybe this will be the thing that finally gets us the fan interaction. Yeah.
Could be.
We'll get the hate mail of people telling us how wrong we are.
And we just leave it unread.
I don't know.
Text message from Topher Grace. We just leave them unread.
We'll read it. We just will ignore it, or we'll just make fun of you on the next episode.
That's probably more likely.
All right. So, as promised, even though we're a man down, we're a week away from the Super Bowl. So let's give our increasingly inaccurate predictions of who we think is going to win the Super Bowl.
All right. I have Green Bay over Kansas City.
Okay. All right. I think
I might have a chance.
I had Green Bay over Buffalo.
I think I had Green Bay over Tennessee, actually, was what I picked. I was a little off.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I think the Rams legitimately are going to blow the Bengals off the table. I don't think the Bengals stand much of a chance in this game. But I will put it to you this way. I didn't think the Bengals really had enough to beat the Raiders. But I didn't think much of the Raiders, so that game for me was a pickup. I didn't think that the Bengals stood a chance against the Titans, and I was wrong.
Well, that Tannehill cost them that game.
Well, yeah, but I didn't see Tannehill doing that. I didn't think Kansas City was going to even let Cincinnati on the field. and Cincinnati managed to find a way to do it. So I've been wrong at least twice now about Cincinnati. And I was talking to somebody at work, and I was telling him the last. I mean, I'd have to look at all of the recent Super Bowls to sit here and say one way or the other. But the last Super Bowl I remember, where pretty exclusively across the board, nobody's giving Cincinnati a shot or the other team a shot, would have been the Denver Carolina Super Bowl, when everybody's like, well, Cam Newton's got this. Like, this is in the bag. Like, Denver's not even going to be in this game. And then Denver showed up and just beat the pants off of Carolina.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good game.
So part of me thinks that, like, you know, we're going to have 2 weeks of all the talking heads going, Cincinnati doesn't stand a chance. Matt Stafford's going to take care of this. The Rams defense is too good. Blah, 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 blah. This, for me, I mean, I'm going to stick with the Rams as my pick, but I will not be shocked if Cincinnati wins.
See, this is where we need Jeremy, because I think the Bengals are going to beat the Rams. We would need that tiebreaker. I don't know. The Bengals seem like they got something going this year, where they might be that team.
You're not wrong. I mean, you know, as just
like every time, it's like they're not going to win this. They figure it out, and the Rams realistically should have lost to the Niners if it wasn't for Jimmy Garoppolo's desperation interception. He tossed at the end. The Niners dropped that game-winning pick, game-sealing pick.
Yeah. Well,
I just think Stafford's going to be good old reliable Matt Stafford from Detroit, and just come up a little short.
But Stafford is the reason that the Rams are in the Super Bowl.
I think, yeah, but he hasn't looked that great.
I don't know. I mean, I agree. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, if you play this game just solely on paper, the Rams have it like hands down. But
I'd say most of the positions you'd have to lean towards the Rams.
But that's why you don't. That's why you don't play the game on paper. You play the game on the field. I mean, and Cincinnati. I mean, there was a point in this year where we were talking about how good Cincinnati was, and then they kind of fell apart, and everybody's like, "Well, they've come back to earth. They're not gonna." And then they managed to right the ship at the right time and got hot. And I mean, we've seen this with the Steelers, however many years ago, where you know they got hot at the right time and they rolled right through the playoffs, and they were the first team to win every playoff game on the road. You know,
you could say the same with Green Bay when they won it last in 2010, 2011 season.
Yeah.
They had to do it as a 6th seed, and
so there is something to be said for getting hot at the right time and getting healthy at the right time.
I might have to go try to find my Bengals jersey and bust that out for the game.
You know what? I'm not shocked you have one.
I have one for most teams, so I think it might be a Carson Palmer jersey.
Okay, all right. I was going to guess Ickey Woods, but
not that old. I think it's Palmer.
Palmer
might be Palmer or Hushmanzada.
Not Andy Dalton, not the Red Rocket.
No. I think it was the Palmer time.
All right. Well, so the history of the Super Bowl. The very
long history.
The very first Super Bowl was January 15th, 1967. And I bet you, being that who you're a fan of, you can tell me exactly who played in that game.
The Packers over the Chiefs.
And you could probably even tell me the score.
That I could not do.
Oh, that's kind of surprising. But yeah, so that
I was going to say like 35-17, but I don't think that's it.
No, I don't think it was that high. But because we're not going to just talk about the history of the Super Bowl, because that would get boring. A lot of the Super Bowl games kind of sucked. There's been some good ones. But we're going to talk about what most people are watching the Super Bowl for. The ads.
Wardrobe malfunctions.
That we'll get to those too.
It was 35-10 was the final score of Super Bowl I.
Okay. Widely considered to be the first traditional Super Bowl ad is Apple Mac 1984. It was the athlete running through, and they're like in a dystopian world, and like she launches the hammer like through the screen, and it's like introducing the Apple Mac. It was basically like in 1984 going, this is an affordable home computer that your average normal person can have in their house. Because at that point, that was not really something that had been out. Like some
Yeah,
people,
they were a lot bigger, the machines back then.
well, they were bigger, and like people just like now it's taken for granted that every house has at least one computer in it.
Yeah, you have a computer in your pocket most of the time too, with your phone.
You know that.
Unless you're one of those elderlies that refuse to get off of like flip phones, and
Right.
I can't even remember what company it is that makes those. Jitterbug?
Sure, why not? I was gonna say Cricket, but that's just a wireless company.
That's I think Jitterbug makes those
Um,
flip phone stuff.
but I mean, that was 1984. Apple made what is widely considered to be the first Super Bowl ad. It isn't necessarily, obviously, it's not the first Super Bowl ad because the Super Bowl started in '67, and that was almost 20 years later. But it's the first one that was the big production value, like we spent a lot of money to get this on here and made it like an event, like a mini movie, a mini show. Like people were like, and the next day people were talking about that ad almost as much as they were talking about the game. Like had the internet existed, well, and that was the reason the internet now exists, is that that ad launched home computers. That's what the water cooler talk was all about. I guarantee you that's what all the people on the radio the next day were talking about was, oh my goodness, can you believe that? Because the Super Bowl halftime show didn't really start. Like, I mean, they had a halftime show.
Yeah, but most of the halftime shows back in the early stuff for just like marching bands from usually whatever stadium or whatever teams were playing,
Or Up With People was a big one that they had. I want to say it was 88, 89 when they got Michael Jackson to do it. And even then, it was a couple years later after that before they were like, hey, we should actually do something with this.
Yeah, make it a big spectacle.
Make it a big spectacle. Because, I mean, so it was 84 that taught the Super Bowl people aren't just going to hang around and watch the game. Because in the first Super Bowl had about, I thought I wrote it down.
The first Super Bowl's attendance was 61,000. If that's what.
Okay, here we go. The first Super Bowl ratings, they were on two networks. It was 26.75 on CBS and 24.43 on NBC. So just over 50 mil.
Yeah.
The highest rated Super Bowl ever was 2015 at 114 million. Okay. So, the Super Bowl went from, I mean, that's a huge jump. Now, granted, in 1967, I don't know. Well, you also have to remember in 1967, there was pretty much only 3 channels or 4 channels, maybe.
TVs were probably still pretty expensive back then.
So, you didn't really have a choice. Like it was either that or nothing at all. I'm guessing that even in 1967, the other networks were not counter programming it. They were just like, show Heidi. Or
and if your team wasn't playing back then, you were probably just like, yeah, who cares?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how fast. I mean, I didn't really find an example. I couldn't really find anything that said, hey, from 1967 until 1974, like when it became like everybody's going to get together and have just a Super Bowl party. Like we're going to watch it, whether, we're going to have it on, and we're going to have food, we're going to have fun, we're just going to hang out regardless of who's playing. Like it doesn't really I couldn't really find an example of culturally when that happened. It must have been before 1984, because otherwise, why would Apple have thought to, counter program, or not counter program, spend the kind of money that they spent on an ad for that? So, somewhere between 67 and 84, it became kind of a cultural phenomenon. The first ad in 1967 was $42,000 for a 30-second ad.
Okay.
For this year's Super Bowl, for a 30-second ad, $6.5 million.
Oh, thanks, inflation.
That's not that's not to make the ad or hire any. That's only to air it.
Yeah.
$6.5 million.
That's to lock your spot.
That's to get. That's how much you have to pay.
And that's not even necessarily that they'll show that commercial either, because isn't there some times where if the game is gone one way or another and they see a dip in audience, they don't even air some of those commercials.
Yeah, but then they have to pay back some of that money if they don't, or if there's certain rules, and I mean I don't have all of those details. I just know, like, if the game becomes a blowout and in the fourth quarter, like you had a big ad that you were going to air, but it's a blowout and you're like, I'm pulling my emergency cord, like, they'll have to give you some of that money back, or they might still run the ad, but they'll be like, all right, here's 2 million back, or
All right. A lot of legal mumbo jumbo that we
Yeah.
didn't look into.
right. You've got some of the iconic Super Bowl ads. The Hey Kid Catch, the Mean Joe Green.
Yeah.
The here, have my Coke, and he throws in the jersey. That was 1980. So like I said, there are some, when I get to them, they're going to, kind of be like, okay, that happened before 1984, but you said the first, well, I'm saying the first ad that was like the cultural phenomenon. 1993, you had Jordan versus Bird, the game.
The game of horse for the Big Mac.
Yeah. 2010 with Old Spice, you had the I'm on a Horse.
Yeah.
The man you could smell like. And then Budweiser, where I kind of had to stop writing, because at some point in 96 they had the horses. They started airing Clydesdale commercials in 86. In 96 they aired them playing football.
Yeah, okay.
In 99 they had the two different Dalmatians that were separated at birth. One became a fire horse, one became a bud horse.
Yes, I remember that
one. 2003, they had the replay where one of the cowboys goes, I believe that ref's a jackass. And the other one goes, no, it's a zebra.
Okay.
89 is, I think, the first Super Bowl I truly remember watching. So it's kind of funny that this is a Bengal Super Bowl and we're talking about like Super Bowl ads and kind of breaking it down, because I remember the Bud Bowl. I think I was more invested in Budweiser versus Bud Light, than I was Bengals versus 49ers.
I mean, that's understandable.
Because, in 89, as an 11-year-old, I was definitely heavy involved in, like, I think Budweiser should win.
Yeah.
Not those jerks over at Bud Light.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know obviously you were alive then, but I don't know how much you're going to remember 89.
I was 2.
Okay, yeah, so definitely not. But
I remember 0.
They had kind of, I don't want to say they're claymation bottles, but they were definitely like stop motion animation claymation style, where like Budweiser was playing Bud Light in the Bud Bowl to determine who was the best. Because that was also
better beer.
Because that was also back when like Bud Light was new. Like that was like, ooh, what's this? Like,
less calories.
So they had a couple years of like the Bud Bowl 1. Like they had, they would they'd spend weeks like pumping like the Bud Bowl commercial, like, oh, who's gonna win? That was a pretty big thing. 95, you had the Frogs,
Yeah. Okay. I remember them.
and then okay, I wrote that down wrong, but in 2000, you had the What's Up ad, the What's Up, which apparently
I'm
actually,
glad people don't do that anymore.
yeah, God, I'm so glad it's done. But actually, oddly enough, that most people remember it as a Super Bowl ad, but that was the one that everybody talks about or thinks of as the Super Bowl ad was actually aired in '99 during Monday Night Football, and then they made the sequel for it for the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Um, so I mean, and we could go on about Budweiser for probably the rest of the episode, but
Oh, between what? Budweiser, Pepsi.
we'll get to them.
Oh, there's so many ads. That could be just each one could have its own episode.
Wendy's in '84 also apparently kind of figured out what Apple did, and that was where the "Where's the Beef?"
Where's the beef lady?
Yeah, the "Where's the Beef" lady came from. That was a Super Bowl. See, I remember. I mean, "Where's the Beef" was so popular. Like they did a whole series of like "Where's the Beef" commercials. And like they had like shirts, and I had like "Where's the Beef" stickers. Like it was
You give me shit, pun intended, for poo stickers.
okay.
And you have where's the beef?
But in '84, I was 6.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. In 2012, we got Nationwide Insurance giving us an iconic commercial, but iconic for the wrong reasons. I know that you and I watched this Super Bowl together. Me, you, and Tony. I want to say we were in Tony's basement.
Probably was.
Remember the boy who died? Like they're like, I wasn't there for.
Yes, I do remember that commercial.
Yeah, that was a Super Bowl commercial. Like
Oh,
that is iconic for the exact wrong reason. Like everybody talked about that because people were like, "What the hell?
why? Yeah, why is this?
Why would you do that?"
Yes.
So occasionally there's a misstep, you know. In 2008, they had the E-Trade Baby.
I didn't mind the baby commercials.
No, that one. I mean, well, now we're back onto iconic for the right reason. Now,
They made a couple spin-offs of those too, which are
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to call it a spin-off commercial,
but yeah,
but they made other ones that I thought they were all pretty good.
correct me if I'm wrong. In my head, and I couldn't find any proof of it. They did a TV show with a talking baby, right? Like after the commercial, I don't remember the thing I couldn't, and this is where I couldn't find anything about it, was whether or not it was related to the E-Trade commercials or not.
I don't remember TV show with a talking baby.
Okay, it could be wrong. I didn't find it on any of my list of. We'll talk about it next week. But the caveman, the guy,
So easy a caveman could do it.
yeah, so easy a caveman, because they did make a TV show about that.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, I want to. I swear they didn't. If it wasn't an E-Trade talking baby commercial show, like it was clearly a ripoff of the commercial. But like I said, couldn't find the proof of it. At some point in the late '90s until very recently, Doritos started a historic run of ads. In '98, you had the laundromat with Ali Landry, like kicking the two guys were trying to hit on her by like flipping the 3D Doritos up and like playing like
Yes.
yeah.
Bounces it off all those dirty ass surfaces and then eats it.
Yeah. And then in 2010, you had the underdog. The man like saw a dog with an anti-bark commercial, and he was like, "Bark for a Dorito," and the dog was all like, "Oh," because he knew he couldn't. And then the dog walked away, and then he came up behind the guy and slapped down on his neck, and then started barking. And every time he barked, the guy would, because it was shocking him.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
one.
2011, they had. Oh, yeah. Okay. This one might have also been iconic for the wrong reasons. Where the coworker started licking dust, the Doritos dust off the other guy's hands,
Okay.
because that's kind of gross. 2013. Oh, do you remember the fashionista daddy one, where the daughter made her dad dress up like a princess, and all the friends like opened the door and they were like, "What are you?" And then
Yeah.
the next scene is the mom opening the door,
And
and
all
they're
of
all,
them,
yeah,
all in their
because
little princess dresses.
yeah, because the daughter is holding them hostage with Doritos.
Yes.
Um, they also had the middle seat commercial where the guy sees the hot lady and it's like, "Oh yeah, you can sit here in the middle seat," and then like she goes, "Oh thanks," and pulls at her kid.
I don't really remember that one.
Okay.
I remember the Doritos one. I don't know if it's on your list. Where the guy has the snow globe.
Oh,
Says
okay.
it says he says it's his it's the fortune telling ball. And he's like, "Will there be free Doritos at work?" And he turns around and he whips the snow globe into the vending machine.
No, I forgot that one. That one is not on my list.
Yeah, and then the other guy that he did that to, he's like, "Am I going to get that promotion?" And he throws the snow globe and he hits the boss in the trunk. And he pops in. He's like, "Promotion denied."
No,
I don't remember what year that was, but I do remember
No.
that one.
I also have the Doritos dogs, where the three dogs put on a trench coat and tried to buy the Doritos.
Okay.
And then the one where the pigs like, "You can have my Doritos when pigs fly." So the next scene is like the kid putting wings on a pig and flying him by the window.
Yes.
Yeah.
There,
And then
there is a Doritos one on the list I have for top commercials.
so do I. So I'm gonna stop talking about Doritos. We might have the same one. I don't know. Well, 2010, you had Snickers with the Betty White. Now, was that the first one where because this is, some of these things were so hard to find information about commercials, because they're like most commercials don't have their own Wikipedia page.
Right, it's just a commercial.
It's just a commercial. Because I remember like there was a whole series of like, here, have a Snickers, because because you're not yourself when you're hungry. And there was the Betty White where, like she was tackling the guy or whatever.
She gets tackled because they're playing
Yeah,
football.
that's right. Yeah. Because there was also the Danny DeVito one, or was it Danny DeVito?
Danny Trejo.
There was Danny Trejo. Like there was a bunch of them. But what I couldn't remember is if Betty White was the first one or if that was just the Super Bowl ad.
That was the start of
Okay.
Because
All right.
I had written that one down as for the list that I was working on. Yeah, that one started it back in 2010, and then it just kind of continued on. Like they had the one in 2015 of the Brady Bunch where Danny Trejo's Marsha.
Yeah.
And then Steve Buscemi is Jan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all stemmed from that commercial.
Well, let me tell you this. As my research went on, it became harder and harder to write everything down. So I kind of stopped writing as much as I should have. 2011, Volkswagen did the Force commercial where the kid was like pretending to be Darth Vader. 2003, Reebok did Terry Tate. That was Terry Crews being office linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up Pepsi earlier, Cindy Crawford, 92.
Yeah,
where like
a very iconic one.
Yeah, that was pretty iconic because they were like talking about like their new design can, but everybody was all like, again, some of these like Doritos had like entire web pages dedicated to just like the best Doritos ads. Budweiser had entire web pages, but like Pepsi, they're just like, yeah, they did a commercial once. because I mean they did some ones with Britney. They did some other ones. I know at some point, like they would just talk about like iconic Pepsi commercials, not just iconic Super Bowl commercials or Pepsi Super Bowl commercials. So like there was a lot of me trying to figure out how to break down what one was Super Bowl and which one was just like
Just a
eh,
normal run-of-the-mill
yeah.
commercial.
We'll get to this guy a little bit more next week when we talk about the Pets.com sock puppet.
Okay.
Um, who was kind of like in the middle of the .com bubble before it burst. But oh boy, did he really take a hit when the .com bubble burst? But he was that launched a whole series of commercials.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was when before Conan started Triumph the Insult Comic Dog or after. I don't, or maybe that's where they got the idea. But
What year was the commercial? Did you write that down?
2000.
Man, I think that was after the dog, but I'm not certain.
I don't. And then this one in 1973. So this is where I started to put more into figuring out where the ads or where the Super Bowl became kind of a cultural phenomenon. Somewhere between 67 and 73. And I think 73 must have been kind of the beginning because they did a Farrah Fawcett Joe Namath commercial. I think I sent it to you a couple weeks ago. In our Facebook message group where it's like it's Joe Namath and he goes, "I'm Joe Namath and I'm about to be creamed," and then Farrah Fawcett like runs a whole bunch of Noxzema shaving cream onto his face and then like shaves him.
Yeah, those are two big people, especially back in early 70s. So that might be the turning point you're talking about.
Well, because I know like Super Bowl III with Joe Namath, like I mean, obviously the Packers won the first two, and being that you're a Packer fan, those mean more to you than Super Bowl III when the Jets beat the Colts.
Joe Namath made the guarantee.
That was like that third Super Bowl was where I think 70 because no 67 60 so 69 when the Jets beat the last time the Jets have even been to the Super Bowl.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. When Joe Namath made the guarantee we're going to win the Super Bowl. So just a couple years later he does a Super Bowl ad and Joe Namath basically made his entire career off of winning that one Super Bowl because I mean he was a good quarterback but he was no Marino or Starr or Starbuck or Elway or Montana. Like I mean his numbers just are not up there with those guys. But so I wonder, if between Super Bowl III and whatever Super Bowl number in 73 would have been, that must have been where the Super Bowl became like the we gotta watch this kind of thing. So, and then between 73 and 84, it became such a big phenomenon that they were like, we have to make ads just for the Super Bowl. Not just, there are so many people watching the Super Bowl that we must program our ads just for that.
Yeah.
So, all right, top 3 favorite Super Bowl ads.
Well, wasn't 73 also the year the Dolphins went undefeated?
Oh, that's a good question.
Was that 1973? Because I'll check that quick. I think that was the year. Because if that was the year they went undefeated, that could have also been a reason a lot more people were tuning in. Because I know they went undefeated one year, but I don't remember if it was 73.
It says 72 Dolphins were undefeated. But I don't know if that means they played the Super Bowl in 73.
Let's see here. The Dolphins. Come on.
Because that's always the hard part about when we're talking about the season, like because the season
The Dolphins lost the Super Bowl January 1672. They won the Super Bowl January 14th, 1973.
Okay.
And they won the Super Bowl 1974.
Well, they went to 3 Super Bowls in a row. Oh, who knew? Okay, yeah. So you called it. I mean that commercial 73 would have been the perfect season
Perfect
Super Bowl. Yeah. So that would have been pretty darn big.
A lot of people would have tuned in for that.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. So, I'm sure that I mean, the guarantee in the third Super Bowl and then the perfect season in 72, 73 would have even probably so clearly those couple years just cemented the Super Bowl as like the cultural event, like the touchstone event of the year of like, everybody's going to be at home watching the Super Bowl.
Yes. I wonder how many they'll get this year, too.
I mean, I got to imagine it'll be insane the kind of numbers that the Super Bowl will get this year. I mean, because people are so tired of everything that they're gonna be out doing the parties.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got my top 3 and then a couple honorable mention.
I never put mine in order, so I just have a list.
Okay, well, I mean, I say top 3 of like I just wrote them down and then I wrote 1, 2, 3 next to them, so they're not necessarily in like a. But
I just wrote a list.
My number 1 favorite Super Bowl ad was a Budweiser commercial from 2015, The Lost Dog. The dog somehow gets out during a storm. He's a puppy, and he gets out.
Why is it with the Clydesdale horse?
And well, the horses like break out of the barn and go like searching for him, and they find him. Like in 2015, I probably didn't. I don't know. I mean, it's. Listen, I know it's been a running joke that I don't have feelings, and because I don't cry at movies or really anything, but if you put a dog in it, it'll probably get me. And that commercial, still, I know. I mean, it
tugs a little.
Tugs a little. And I think this is the one we're both thinking about for our favorite. Number 2 for my list is Doritos, the Time Machine.
No, that is not the one I put on my list.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. But I love that Doritos Time Machine commercial. Jimmy, you're so old.
That's a good one.
And then my third one is the Sprint commercial from 2006 where they talk about the phone being a crime deterrent. And like the guy says, "Oh, how's our crime deterrent?" And he just takes the phone and he chunks it as hard as he can at the guy's head.
Yes. With this anti-theft thing on there, yeah.
Yeah. Those are my 3 favorite ones.
Well, you actually touched on the one I put. I put the Betty White 2010 Snickers one.
Okay.
Because that was the introduction of the "You're not you when you're hungry" ad.
Okay.
Plus, I think of that one once in a while. Just Betty White getting leveled.
It is a good one. Yeah.
Okay, the Doritos one I put also from 2010 was the "Keep Your Hands Off My Doritos" commercial, where the mom brings home like a boyfriend, and she goes to put something away, and he sits down with her son, and he's like, "Oh, I see you got your video game set up." And he's like, "Oh, I might be a new champ when I'm around." And then he grabs the Doritos out of the bowl and the kid slaps him in the face. And then he gets right in his face. He's like, "2 rules. Keep your hands off my mama and my Doritos."
I remember that one.
I really like that one for some reason. And then it was even a more recent one. Oh, in 2018, the Tide commercials, where you didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden, they're like, "It's a Tide commercial."
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They'll start showing like these like pearls and stuff, and all of a sudden be like, "Nope, Tide commercial."
Yeah.
Because it just kept randomly appearing throughout the whole run of commercials.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
So it's the whole run of them, not just one specific Tide commercial, but that whole run of Tide commercials that year.
Because they made it think it was going to be this other product.
Yeah.
Like you're like, wait, is this a Pepsi ad? Nope, it's a Tide commercial.
Mechanics working on the car, and all of a sudden he's like, nope, Tide commercial. What makes it a Tide commercial? See how clean his shirt is? No stains.
Yeah.
That one was in 2018.
All right. I threw for a couple honorable mentions. I threw the GoDaddy commercial where that supermodel Bar Raffaelli was making out with that nerd from Chuck.
Okay.
I know I was watching that one in the basement with you and Tony because I just remember there are people that was 2013 because I remember people were like that was so disgusting and I was just like no it was freaking hilarious.
Nerd go. Yeah.
And then there was the E-Trade commercial and I didn't write down the year, but they had a couple guys sitting in a garage like clapping, and then there was a chimpanzee dressed in like overalls, like dancing on a bucket.
I don't remember that.
Oh, it's just two good old boys sitting in a garage, like clapping like to some like tune, and a chimpanzee wearing like some sort of overalls, like dancing on a bucket, and then the end of it is like E-Trade going, "We just wasted $2 million."
Perfect.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah.
I mean, some of the other ones you touched on that I wrote down was the Old Spice, the Your Man Could Smell Like commercial.
Yeah.
I really like that one because it's like, look at him, now look at me, look back at him, look at me.
Yeah.
Another Dorito one that I put on here was the PepsiCo, the Doritos Blaze versus Mountain Dew Ice Battle.
Okay.
The one with Morgan Freeman and Peter Dinklage when they came out lip syncing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I really enjoyed that one. 2020's Rocket Mortgage, the Jason Momoa, comfortable in his own skin.
Oh yeah.
Where he like takes off all the fake muscles and the shoe and the other one I also enjoyed was the NFL celebrating the 100 year in 2019.
Yeah.
Where all those players are at that like ceremony and Marshawn Lynch drops the football trying to get a handful of cake. And then that big scrum ensues to see who can get the ball.
Yeah.
Just because it brought a lot of the legends into it.
It did. I know that there's been a couple good ones over the last year or two, but overall the commercials have been kind of down the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years maybe. So I'm hoping this year maybe they'll make a comeback.
Yeah. A lot of mine were 2010, 2015, and 2018.
Well, I mean,
I just had the one from 2018 because I really liked the lip sync battle with Peter Dinklage and Morgan Freeman.
I distinctly remember in high school, so 92 to 96, like going to Super Bowl parties and like everybody like during the commercial, shut up. You could talk during the game. You'd get up during the game. You go get more food, get something to drink, go to the bathroom, whatever. Oh, the commercials are on. Oh, everybody.
That's a lot how it is still with all of us hanging out watching the game.
The game's on. All right, I'll go take a piss.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy too to think about how long we've all been getting together to watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because I think, what year are we in? 2022?
Yeah.
So this is at least 13, 14 years of me and Tony getting together for the game.
Yeah, and I think I've been, other than maybe a year or two in between, I think that I've gotten together with you and Tony pretty much every year since I moved here.
Yeah, because I know the 2010 Packer win.
I was with you guys.
That was on his birthday.
Yeah.
I think the Falcon fiasco against the Patriots, I think that was just you and me at my place.
Yeah, that was because I know there's been at least one Super Bowl where I was at home because of the weather or something. I don't remember because I was in the apartment, I want to say. I know not last year, but like 2 years ago, I had just moved into the house and I had that side job. So I was working at the grocery store. And so it's like,
Yeah,
I don't have time to, I'm getting off work and then I'm running home. Like I'm gonna miss, like I missed the beginning of the Super Bowl because I was at work. Like I got home
I
just in time to see like right after kickoff or something like that.
I think the Denver Carolina game we were at Jeremy's
Now, is that
because
the only one we've
I
watched at Jeremy's?
I it might have been we might have watched one or two, but I think that was the one where we all just stuck around and played Rock Band.
Which I would say honestly, not only because we got to see Peyton Manning win the Super Bowl and him retire, and I'm a gigantic Peyton Manning fan. That night as a whole was probably one of my top five. Well, top five is generous. Top 10 nights maybe of all time.
Yeah, that's a fun night. I think we also watched the Seahawks lose to the Patriots at Jeremy's
Yeah, that sounds
with
right.
that Malcolm Butler interception because that started the meme of Richard Sherman's whiny
Yeah,
face.
because I'm pretty sure that's when we got the cease and desist letter from the NFL.
Yes, for periscoping
Yeah,
with
because
the game on in the background.
yeah, that's when the that uh
Yes.
but yeah, no, I mean that because that Rock Band night, that was, I didn't have to go to work the next day because I had been laid off like the week before. So like that was such a good night because like I had been so depressed, like because I had lost my job, like I was just in a bad way, and then just being able to like hang out with you guys and just we had a lot of fun that night.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I mean, there's been some pretty good Super Bowl parties I've been to in my life. In high school, we did the youth group thing, so like all the the youth group of the church, we'd get together and watch Super Bowl at the church. In college, um, we there was a couple guys. We'd go. There was a one per for I think 3 of the 4 years I was in college. There was one professor that had a couple people over, and we'd watch the game over at his house. And then I want to say the last year I was in college, we did it at a different professor's house, but it was like the same group of people. Those were
I
pretty
think
fun.
I think a lot of them I just kind of watched by myself up until I think maybe when Tony moved out here in 2000, 2001. Then we might have got together more for them. But yeah, it's been an ongoing tradition for a long time.
And then I moved to Florida, and obviously the group of friends I had down there, like we hung out every weekend anyway. So it was just like, well, of course we're getting together for the Super Bowl. We just did it bigger.
We're already hanging out, just turn the game on.
And then, so I moved here permanently in 2000. Let's see, I moved in here in 2005. And that's before I knew you. Then I moved to California for a little bit, and I came back. So I want to say 2009 would have been. I don't know if you guys would have invited me over in 2009. So maybe it was 2010 was the first one that you invited me over to, and I think we've pretty much seen every Super Bowl together since then.
Yeah, maybe minus one or two
Yeah, except for I can only think of maybe two
in the last 12 years.
Yeah, because I want to say two. Well, now that I'm thinking of it, 2 or 3, because I want to say I've seen one with my in-laws. Like I think there was one year where I went over to their house, but
yeah,
I would say But I mean, the Super Bowl is just like, I mean, even people who don't care about football watch the Super Bowl every year. I mean, that's you know that's not I'm not breaking any ground by
no.
making that statement. From the beginning of the Super Bowl.
I was gonna say, what's your favorite? I don't know if you want to call it Super Bowl snack, Super Bowl entree.
Oh,
That is at pretty much that's at every one. Because I could tell you what you're trying to think. Mine is those little Smokies and barbecue sauce.
yeah, you really can't go wrong with that. Like
Every year, that's what I tell Tony.
yeah,
When he asks about what to do, I'm like little Smokies.
yeah, little Smokies and barbecue sauce.
And then I probably eat like 2 dozen to 30 of them. and
Yeah,
feel slightly bad about myself.
yeah. I love the good sausage and cheese tray. Can't go wrong with that. Um, this year is going to be a little interesting because I've got slightly more dietary restrictions. Um,
So Little Smokies, yay, nay this year.
oh,
I
I
mean,
can,
they're
I
still
can,
going to be there, and I'm still going to hammer them
right.
down.
I can still do those. I don't know if I can eat all of the crackers. I think I'll just be able to eat cheese and sausage just without the crackers.
There's
Um,
nothing wrong with that either.
yeah. Um, I have to. I weighed myself yesterday. I'm still not sure I'm comfortable with announcing the weight publicly, but I can tell you that it is over 40 pounds lost since I've been diagnosed with the diabetes. So, you know,
Trying to think, when was that? 40
uh,
pounds in,
since beginning of October.
that's pretty good. 40 pounds in what, like 4 months, 5 months?
Yeah, especially since I don't really work out. Like it's just pretty much been through diet, and I could be doing better. But man, it's so hard.
Wait till it's warmer out and you can take those dogs for walks.
Yeah, that's true. That will go a long way once I can actually go outside. And then
Yeah.
I'll be able to mow the lawn more and
Especially just walking around where you live, you got all
I
those
got
inclines.
I do. But there's yard work that I maybe have put off for the last couple of summers that I'll force myself to go out and do, you know, that kind of stuff. But, for one night I can be a little bad.
Nah, there is no diet during the Super Bowl party.
Yeah, I mean, I tortured myself during Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas for the Super Bowl, though.
Not the ones with families, just the one with friends.
Yeah, make
Because
your life.
we don't judge you.
I'm gonna make your life miserable by not allowing myself to have carbs and starch. But those guys, oh no, I'll do that. Yeah.
They won't judge me for going for that second piece of cake.
All right. Oh, okay. Here, I did write that stuff down. Okay, so I wrote this little paragraph here. From the beginning, the Super Bowl was huge, but starting in '84 with the Apple ad, the game changed. Within a few years, commercials became almost bigger than the game itself. Sure, there have been ads building up to it, like the Master Lock ads, where the guys were shooting the Master Lock to prove still the Mean Joe Green ad, the Noxema, the Farrah Fawcett, Joe Namath ad. But '84 changed the game. That gave you the Where's the Beef? That gives you the 1984 Apple commercial. And then in '93, Michael Jackson did the halftime show, and then that changed everything again. So starting basically, from '67 to '84, it built and built and built to the point where the ads were like, hey, we have an audience here that we can do something with. Let's not just waste it by showing the same commercial that we air all the time. Let's bam, they intentionally they release some of your bigger movie trailers during the Super Bowl, and some of your bigger products make announcements. And then so it took them another 9 years after that to go, hey, we already have them here. Let's make something let's give them something else. Let's bring in Michael Jackson for the halftime show. Let's not do Up with People.
Do you think there was a way to track the dip in audience when the halftime show was on?
I mean,
unless they changed the channel, I don't think they could.
No, I mean it's really hard to track that kind of stuff anyway. I know they have the Nielsen rating system that kind of gives you an idea because they have if we have this many families of married, single, divorced, white, black, Latino, Asian, whatever in each neighborhood. We know from the census that there's this many people here, so we need and so they have a formula that says for We need one house out of every 20 or one house out of every 100 that needs a Nielsen box in the house. And then but that's notorious. Like if you go back in history and I tell you that, in 1967, just over 50 million people were watching the Super Bowl. At best, that's a guess. It was probably way more than that because that's just who we had. Like that's going, okay, in a given area, like we have 1 million people in this area, we have 1,000 houses in the Nielsen. Of these 1,000 houses, 700 of them were watching the Super Bowl. So we can go math. Statistics tells us that this percentage of Milwaukee was watching the Super Bowl this year. It's not 100% accurate because you also can't say that just because we have one household that's mom, dad, 3 kids, and the dad's college educated, the mom's high school educated, then every family that matches that, demographic is also watching the Super Bowl.
Right.
Right. But that's kind of how the math works for that. I think it's easier for them to do it now because with the advent of the cable box or like the streaming stuff, they can do a better job of saying what the TV is actually doing.
X amount of people are on at this time.
Yeah, so Spectrum knows that, the cable box is on from this time to this time and this many, but that only says that, we know that the house has this many people who live in it. It doesn't account, like if Tony was a Nielsen family, it doesn't account the fact that Tony has 8 guys over at his house.
Yeah. That's too many. That's too many. We limited to like half of that.
Yeah. So, when I was living down in Florida, we'd have 20, 25 people over at one house watching the Super Bowl. Well, that's like you say, just say it's 20 people. We're all watching the Super Bowl at one house. That's 19 houses that are empty and the TV's not on. So those TVs are not accurately rating how many people are actually watching the Super Bowl. And I don't honestly know how big, because I've never done it. In my history, I've only never not watched the Super Bowl at home once. Not including like youth group time. Like I've only gone to a bar or a restaurant to watch the Super Bowl one time in my life.
I cannot remember any time not being either home or at a friend's house.
Right.
For a game.
Right. And I'm counting like when I've been at a church watching the Super Bowl as being at like a friend's home. No. The only time I watched the Super Bowl at an establishment was when I was in Lima, Peru, watching a Super Bowl at a Hooters.
Because you couldn't get the game?
Because the hotel wasn't going to air the game, or like for whatever reason, my friend Brad and I were in Peru, and like we couldn't figure out what channel the TV was going to be on, or what channel the game was going to be on, and we knew that there was a mall within walking distance of the hotel that had a couple of American restaurants that we knew would have the game. And of the two of them, either Tony Roma's or Hooters, we figured Hooters would be the better option to watch a Super Bowl.
So, who played? Do you remember?
That was the year the Giants beat the Patriots to keep the Giants from winning the undefeated season.
Oh, that was one of Brett Favre's last years.
Yeah,
because the Giants knocked off the Packers.
Yes. Because I watched that game here in Wisconsin, and then I flew to Lima, and like the day before the Super Bowl, or like maybe 2 days before the Super Bowl, and my friend Brad and I were like, well, we got to watch the Super Bowl, especially this one.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, that Super Bowl will go down in infamy as one of the best Super Bowls ever anyway, just because it was such a good game. But I was in a mall in Lima, Peru, that was on a cliff overlooking Pacific Ocean, because of the way North America and South America go. They're kind of over for each. So like, even though you flew out of Miami on the Atlantic, you landed in Lima in Peru on the Pacific.
Okay.
Even though they're in a straight line, because South America is that far over. Like that's, like they're not, North America and South America are not in line with each other. They might be touching, but
But they're definitely not north and south.
yeah. Well, I mean, they're north and south. They're just, like if you could also say it was like west and east,
Yeah.
But
Lima, Peru, in a mall, at a Hooters,
overlooking
the ocean.
overlooking the ocean, with my friend Brad, his mom, and his sister, and his sister's friend. No, it wasn't his sister's girlfriend. They were just friends. Okay. That was one of the stranger Super Bowls I've ever been involved in, but I mean, I mean, we were there with a bunch of Americans who also happened to be in Lima who wanted to watch the Super Bowl. We couldn't understand a word because they broadcast it and they didn't just like put subtitles on it. They broadcast it in Spanish.
Oh,
So every so often we'd look over at one of the Americans who spoke Spanish and we'd be like, what'd he say? Or, we'd ask one of the waitresses, hey, what'd that guy just say? But most of it was just us going, all right, well, I mean, we understand the game of football. We can watch it in another language. We don't.
yeah.
But I can tell you this much. They do not air actual Super Bowl ads or American Super Bowl ads in Lima, Peru.
Interesting.
So I did not get to see any Super Bowl ads that year. I had to wait till I got home and then watch them all online.
I wonder if that's just an American thing. Like if that's the same in other countries. It's not as big of a deal. It's just here's some normal commercials, normal ads.
Well, what we call football, the American football, is uniquely American. It's getting bigger in other countries, but like the people of Lima were not like you could tell the waitresses were just like, okay, we have a bunch of Americans in the bar today to watch whatever this is.
We're getting paid in American dollars.
We are making bank today. Because we were all there from beginning to end ordering food and drink. Like we were just like, bring another beer, bring another plate of wings. What, you guys take American dollars? We don't have to, move our money over? Done. Here you go. All right. You do the math for us.
There's a bunch of Americans, if it's good or bad, we don't know.
Yeah. I feel like we got ripped off. Whatever. I don't know. So that was a fun Super Bowl. Yeah, but I mean, I know that like football, obviously Canada is probably just America Junior. There we go. We just lost the Canadian audience.
They got their own football league too.
Yeah, they do. I know that American football is getting bigger in Japan.
The Jaguars are taking over London.
I know that American football has done very well in England, at least when they play the one or two games they play there a year.
Yeah, the Jaguars. That's where they go at every year.
That's because
you can't sell out your own stadium. Go over there.
Yeah, because but I know. I mean, obviously Mexico is not. Culturally Mexico is obviously very different than us, but I think they really appreciate American football there as well. I want to say Australia is actually picking up American football kind of heavy. But I could be wrong on that one. But I don't know if the Super Bowl has quite the cultural phenomena that it is here. So I tell you what, though, and Jeremy can either cut this or leave it in. I'm actually doing a British podcast next week. I'm waking up at like 7 a.m. on Sunday. And I'm going to do an episode of this podcast called the Bullpen Podcast. Let me make sure I got the exact name right. Yeah, the bullpen. Apparently, these two British guys have somehow discovered American baseball,
All right.
and they really like it. But they are spiritually about as similar to us as a podcast as you can get. I've listened to a handful of episodes. They have a very dry sense of humor, um, and just the way they interact with each other is very similar to the three of us. So I'm looking forward to doing an episode with them. So next week, I hope that I will be able to give you an answer on how big the Super Bowl actually is in England, based off an opinion of just two guys.
Hey, it's better than the opinion of zero guys.
That is true. So, any parting thoughts on the Super Bowl or Super Bowl ads?
Um, I feel like there's probably some of the ads are probably better than the game. I'd much rather see the Bengals beat the Rams than vice versa. Even though Stafford deserves it from having to put up with Detroit for X amount of years. But yeah, go Bengals.
I mean, I'd like to see I would like to see Cincinnati win it because I want the list of teams that have never won the Super Bowl to dwindle. Like, I'd love it to be, we're like, really, it's just Detroit. Come on, guys. Like,
Detroit, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Houston,
Cleveland.
Cleveland's in there too. Is that it?
Yeah. But I think Cleveland, Jacksonville, and Houston have never been.
I don't think Detroit's ever been to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, Detroit's never been. Cincinnati's been, but they've never won it.
Thanks to the 49ers.
And then Arizona's been, but they've never won it.
Thanks to Pittsburgh.
The Chargers have been, but they've never won it. Have they?
I'm not sure who the Chargers would have. Let's see here.
But
Come on. Yeah. I don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out which teams have never been there. Teams that never win the Super Bowl.
okay.
Okay, San Diego's 0-1. Houston / Tennessee 0-1. St. Louis / Phoenix / Arizona 0-1. Cleveland never been. Detroit never been. Jacksonville never been, and Houston never been.
Has Minnesota won the Super Bowl?
0-4.
Okay, yeah.
Buffalo's 0-4. Atlanta's 0-2. Carolina's 0-2, and Cincinnati's 0-2.
Okay, so there's 4 teams that have never been: Cleveland, Detroit, Jacksonville, and Houston. 2 of them kind of have an excuse, and that they're a little bit newer.
Houston and Jacksonville. Cleveland and Detroit are just bad.
Yeah, Minnesota and Buffalo have. I'm sure Cincinnati would like to win it because they don't want to end up on the Minnesota Buffalo side of, like, we've been this many times, but we've never won it scale.
Yeah. They'd be 0-3. So not as bad as Minnesota or Buffalo.
Yeah, but all right. Well, then I guess if you are Detroit,
Fan of the Lions.
and you're so pathetic that you've never even been to the Super Bowl, or you're Nationwide Insurance and you thought your idea of running a Super Bowl ad is telling us about a dead kid, just remember, America, that stupid never walks alone.